Hey, Steven.
Hey, how you doing,
How have
Tim?
you? Good, man. How you doing?
Doing good. So, first of all, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to have this interview with you tonight.
Hey, no problem. No, none at all. It's good to talk to you, man. That's one thing I miss about not having Frontier League ball team anymore is
Yeah,
seeing all the people I got to know over the years.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to have just an interview. I'll be asking basic questions and
Sure.
about the topic of your choice, which would be, of course, baseball.
Hmm.
You and I, we're still baseball fans, even though ever since those days of the Frontier League, things have really changed, to say the least.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's an understatement, isn't it?
Yep. So got a little cue card here.
Oh, okay.
So let's start off by just asking you basic questions about baseball. First off, how did you initially get into baseball in the first place?
Well, just growing up in St. Louis, Cardinals were always around. So that would have been, I got into baseball, I guess, about 1970, 71 when I was a kid. So, that Cardinals were just coming out of that late 60s. So they still had Gibson and Brock and Carlton and McCarver and all those guys. Minor league ball, it's a different story. Susan and I went on vacation one year and took in a minor league game at Cedar Rapids, Iowa,
Hmm.
and liked it and started seeking out places closer to home and discovered a team in Springfield, Illinois, about an hour and a half away.
Yeah,
And spent a lot of time going there.
great. Yeah, for me, I've always been around baseball. I've always watched baseball on TV when I was a kid.
Mhm.
I've always gotten used to the local teams like the Cincinnati Reds and the team up in Cleveland. They were called the
Right.
Indians, now they're called the Guardians, and that whole thing. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Speaking of the Frontier League, we've had conversations off and on via email about what's been going on with the Frontier League. I've always been curious, especially after the Chillicothe Paints, my local team, left the Frontier League. And I've always had that curiosity up until very recently when it just seems like uh, everything I knew about the Frontier League just went off the rails for some reason. So my question is, uh, what are your basic thoughts on where the Frontier League is right now as an independent league?
It's I think the league itself is actually still pretty solid. I don't know, and I don't have a lot of inside information like I did when River City was in the league and I was there all the time.
Right,
Um, I go to gateway games now, but I'm not like a key part of that.
right.
I'm there.
The Gateway
Um,
Grizzlies, yeah,
which is weird with all the time I spent with River City. It's like it's probably before your time, but at the end of his career, Henry Aaron playing with the Milwaukee Brewers or Willie Mays going back to New York but playing for the Mets.
yeah,
It's the same, but it's a little different. It's kind of strange, but I think the league is pretty solid. As far as I know, there aren't any teams in big financial problems, um, other than they're on about their third year now of the Empire State Grays traveling team,
yeah,
which that came about when the Southern Illinois Miners folded and left the league with an odd number of teams.
right,
So they had to add the Grays, and I think every league has had a traveling team at one point or another, every independent league at least. Um, so I think they're pretty solid. Fortunately, that merger with the Can-Am League came about a few years ago,
right,
and that's been a little different because when you and I followed the Frontier League, there was an age limit.
Yeah.
I think the first couple of years of the league, the age limit was like 24. Um, there is no age limit in the Frontier League now.
It doesn't seem to be that way.
No, there's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There's not that because the Can-Am League didn't have an age limit, so they had to kind of reach a middle ground as far as the experience levels and things like that. Actually, last year, Susan and I hosted a player for the Grizzlies, and the player that was our host son for spring training was 34 years old.
Yeah.
We're used to having guys about 10 years younger than that.
Right.
So that's made a difference. The Grizzlies also have a guy who's played parts of 3 seasons in the major leagues. So you're seeing major league veterans, career AAA players. I'm sorry, I got to silence my phone.
No, it's okay.
Um, um, Older guys, generally not as many first and second year players. Travel's different. Gateway actually flew out to the East Coast. You would never have seen that before. Um, I know they established something. They're a major league partner league now.
Right.
Oh, and I got to tell you the truth, Stephen. I don't think that really means anything. I
Yeah.
don't. I don't. It may give them an air of legitimacy, um, which is really strange. You remember back in the day. I mean, you've been following the Frontier League since what,
I
2019?
started going to as a fan. I started going to the Chillicothe Paints games late 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but you remember the Frontier League teams and players got no respect from affiliated baseball.
Yeah. I remember that.
To now we've gotten their blessing to be a partner league, which I don't think really means anything to the American Association and the Frontier League. I don't think it means much.
Right.
The Atlantic League actually, I think, has kind of sold their soul a bit
Mm,
and get to be the league where if Major League comes up with some rule that they want to try out, they try it in the Atlantic League. Like last year, they were supposed to move the pitcher's mound back a foot,
yeah.
the pitching rubber back a foot. I don't know if that ever came about, but no.
But yeah, yeah, many things have changed in independent baseball. Just from the times that I do check out independent leagues, I notice all sorts of changes, especially in the last few years. And yeah, just my take on it about the Frontier League. The Frontier League that you and I knew back then, so much of it has gone away, in my opinion, and it's sad. It definitely is sad. And since we're still talking about the Frontier League, you were the Frontier League fan historian for
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. You had your own website, uh,
Right.
and and I remember the days when I would contribute to your from the Bleachers blog.
I
I
remember those
remember
well.
that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was a fun time when I was doing
Those
that. Yeah,
those were fun times. Those I for me the Frontier League changed when the Richmond Roosters left the league
mm,
because I always enjoyed making that trip. I'd go to Richmond and then go down to Chillicothe and spend a
yeah,
couple days in each place, and I got to know people both places like you. And I also enjoyed going to different towns that all had a little bit different flavor. Um, I don't know about any of the teams, the old Can-Am League teams, because I haven't been there. In
right,
fact, when the leagues merged, I told Billy I'm not going to New York or Quebec to take pictures of a ballpark.
yeah.
That's a
The travel alone, yeah,
yeah. The travel alone will kill you. But it seems that most of the parks now in this part of the league are suburban St. Louis, suburban Chicago, suburban Cincinnati, suburban Pittsburgh. I believe the only team in the West Division that's not in a suburb is Evansville.
Evansville. Yeah.
Yeah, everything else is in a suburb, and except for the fact that like I have some friends in Windy City, so I'll go there to see them. I could stay home and see a game in the suburbs. I don't, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Right.
Whereas, before it was Springfield, Illinois, it was Evansville, it was Richmond, it was Chillicothe, Johnstown, Rockford, different places with a little different flavor. And I miss those days. I think we've lost a little something from that.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's like become some sort of imbalance between the smaller markets and the suburban markets. You know, when it comes to independent leagues and the Frontier League especially. Uh, yeah, you mentioned some of them right there: Richmond, Chillicothe, Johnstown. The list goes on,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the big things that the current Frontier League leadership. Uh, that's one of the things that they're not understanding right now is that they're just not getting that balance back. They're just going straight to the suburbs, and they're just not even giving the smaller towns a chance anymore. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple things with that. And I don't know if you're aware of this,
Hmm.
but when Bill Lee left, the Frontier
Hmm.
League did not hire a commissioner; they hired
Right.
a CEO. Well, he
CEO.
just
Hmm.
he just resigned about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, he did. I did
Yeah,
not know
right.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, I they have a league president who is one of the owners, but I'm not sure who.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, the CEO resigned to take a job with some baseball organization in Texas.
mm,
So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. I never met the man. Like I said, I don't have any inside information like I
right.
used to before. But I think part of it is, Bill Lee's retired. Rich Sojay and Sojay has, with Gateway has stepped down. He's still involved with the team, but he's not running it day to day, and he's
Right.
not president of the league anymore. You know, uh, Clint Brown and Florence passed away.
Yeah.
Um, uh, those older guys, that generation that really grew the league from just in the Ohio Valley to being a regional power, those guys have all faded on now. So it's, I guess it is what it is. And the Frontier League's kind of, I think, as far as growth between a rock and a hard place, uh, the bigger the bigger cities that could take independent ball are probably already tied up, um, if not with affiliated ball, with, say, the American Association or the Atlantic League.
Right.
Those smaller cities have all gone the summer collegiate route. We've talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, I am in Marion, Illinois right now, and the Thrillsville Thrillbillies, yes, I know,
What a name.
are are playing over at Mountain Dew Park, which used to be Rent One Stadium, home of the Miners.
Right.
But if you look at, say, the Prospect League, Springfield, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Marion, Illinois, Du Bois County, Indiana, a couple other cities, Slippery Rock, maybe Johnstown, maybe I'm not sure about those, but a lot of former independent league teams have gone that summer collegiate route.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that about summer collegiate leagues because that was going to be another question of mine. Um, our respective towns, O'Fallon, Missouri, and Chillicothe, Ohio, they have made the jump from independent league baseball to summer collegiate league
In
baseball.
fact, we're in the same league, right? Prospect League.
I believe so, yes. So now that has happened, and since you have watched some summer collegiate baseball games, and obviously you've watched independent baseball games before, uh, have you noticed any differences whatsoever between the two levels of play?
Actually, I have not gone to any summer collegiate league
Oh, you
games.
have not? No, okay.
I actually have not. I have not been to see the O'Fallon Hoots. I'm a Frontier League guy, so as long as Gateway's in the league, I'll be going to see them. I have quite a few friends over there. Even back when River City was there, it was always kind of a friendly rivalry. It was
Right.
never was never like the Yankees and Red Sox, or say the Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings. It was
Oh, that, yeah.
never bad like that. So nothing against the Hoots, and they're doing really well. Um, I can't talk to the standard of play or anything like that. I can just tell you what I've seen. What I know is that the Hoots are drawing very well. They've had some sellouts. Um, they have, I believe, fireworks every night. They bring in some entertainment. Um, Madison, Wisconsin's another city that did that. They were in affiliated ball for years and years and years and couldn't cut it. They went to the Northern League for a couple years. Then the Madison Mallards jumped in the Northwoods League, and there's nights they have 5,000 people in that stadium for a summer collegiate league.
Yeah. Certain markets like that, Madison, Wisconsin, they are definitely good fits for summer collegiate leagues.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot about Madison being a success there. Yeah.
Yeah, they have really done well there, and they've been in the Northwoods League for what, 20 years now, maybe more. Um, but if you think about it, I remember talking to somebody in the Paints office. I don't remember if it was Chris Hanners or who, after when the Paints made the jump, and and I've heard the same thing from a couple other people I know that have worked in affiliated in independent ball and summer collegiate. Is that the biggest difference is, of course, you've got no payroll because it's college kids.
Right.
But even more than that, because they are college kids, they don't get paid. There's no workman's comp insurance.
Hmm.
I had
Economics. Yeah.
I had one executive tell me that their workman's comp insurance in the Frontier League was literally more than what their payroll was.
Mm,
So you're talking about 150 to $200,000 a year in expenses that you are not spending with a wood bat team.
mm. So they're saving money that way.
They're turning a profit.
Yeah.
The Generally the tickets are about on a par with a Frontier League ticket,
Mm,
but it's and you know something else that's come about just I guess since COVID is these pay to play leagues. I
pay to play.
know Normal has a 14 league that plays there, and the O'Fallon Hoots have the Car Shield League that plays there, and they have four teams that play all their games there, and they recruit kids, but the kids have to pay to play in that league. So that's another source of income for the team.
Hmm.
So but no expenses, and let's be honest, your average independent ball fan is probably not like you and me that knows all the players,
Right.
cares what place your team is. Most of the fans, I imagine, want to go because the game's cheap. Pardon me, see a good game, have a couple of beers, have a good time, and then go on home.
Yeah.
And so for that, I would be surprised. I'd like to know what percentage of people who go to a Hoots game don't realize that's college ball and it's no longer professional.
Yeah. And that's only my concern is that the economics, that sounds reassuring, but it's like uh for all these teams that make that switch from independent league ball to summer collegiate ball, they're giving up a lot. They're giving up a lot of what made that team interesting, at least from my perspective. And in the case of the Paints, I still covered them for a couple years, even after they made that jump to the prospect league. But eventually, I just stopped going because I could tell that there was like clear differences between the two levels, and
Right.
hopefully others would pick up on that, but we'll see.
Again, if people are willing to pay to see that, um, that's fine. I One thing that concerns me about the collegiate leagues is there's basically the Cape Cod is way at the top.
Hmm.
The Northwoods League is right below that, and they are both incredibly stable. And then I don't know how many collegiate wood bat leagues there are dozens.
Many. Yeah.
There
I've
there
noticed
are
that.
there are dozens, and it seems that that talent pool's got to be pretty shallow if you've got that many teams.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think if you're in the Joe Blow Wood Bat League in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, you're probably not attracting guys who were a starter at a Division One school.
Right.
I imagine most of the smaller collegiate leagues are attracting a lot of JUCO players,
Right.
NAIA Division Three guys. Um, I'm sure there's some good ball played there, but you're probably not. But again, it goes back to, I think, does your average fan even care?
Right. And that's another important part of it. Yeah, the fan experience and speaking of fan experience, this is just a general question. It's not specific to any level of play, but when you go to the ballpark just to catch a game of baseball, uh, what do you think should the fan experience be like at the game? Like as
I,
far as economics go, or like any attractions, in between innings things?
well, you can't touch on the in between innings without mentioning the new rules in play with the what is it now? You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds
Right,
between innings.
right,
So you've had a couple of things going there, which is teams are not selling as many concessions because if you have to cut off concession, and most teams cut off sales in the middle of seventh inning, end of the seventh inning on alcohol, which of course is your big item. Um, so they're not making as much money there, and the between inning stuff, you can see at least in the Frontier League, um, the on-field crew is really scrambling to try to get something done in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
that's not a lot of time.
It's not. I remember the early days at River City. They had so much. Sometimes they'd have two contests in between the same two innings, and that was a little over. But it kept the advertisers happy, kept the
Yeah,
sponsors happy. It's I guess it's kind of hard now to get a sponsor to what can you do in 2 minutes and 30 seconds? Hey, we got three guys here on top of the dugout, and each one of you gets a number from 1 to 10, and then whoever guesses closest to what I win wins some free tickets.
right.
Uh, I mean, you can't do a lot in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So my hat's off to them if they can come up with an interesting game like that. As far as economics, for a independent Frontier League, I'm thinking about $15 is a good price. The last new park I've been in is we actually went to a Chicago White Sox game last
The
month.
White Sox.
Um, to be honest, I never thought I would go to another major league game because my local team seems to think they're doing you a favor by allowing you in the stadium. Um, and Stephen, this is something that puzzles me. I don't understand. Um, we paid $75 for White Sox tickets, 20 rows behind home plate, which
Okay.
was actually not a bad price. But then parking was $30. I paid $14 for a 16-ounce beer. Um, we ended up spending over $300 to go to that game.
Wow. Wow.
Um, yeah. So for the life of me, can't understand why, say, St. Louis, we've got the Grizzlies on the east side, who have gotten a little press now because they've been playing so well. You've got the Hoots in O'Fallon. You've got the Alton River Dragons on the Illinois side, and also in the Prospect League. You can go to any one of those games for, I think the Hoots just announced they're selling their tickets for $9 for the rest of the season.
Mm,
You take a family of four, that's $36. You can't even get into a Cardinal game for $36.
yeah.
But I, people would rather, go to one or two Cardinal games a year, or Reds or Cubs or wherever you are, than go to, the other game, the minor league game or independent league game in town. you could probably go to one of those every other weekend for less money than you would going to one or two major league games.
Yeah, there is a big difference economically between going to a major league game and going to lower level minor league games, even summer collegiate games. And I wanted to ask that about fan experience because I've I watch all sorts of YouTube videos about commentaries on baseball. What do
Mhm.
people think about where Major League Baseball in particular is going? I've been, yeah, I read comments in the comment section below and videos, and I get a whole lot of different opinions. Uh, some of it, yeah, very positive, and some of it not so much. And I just also want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Major League Baseball, uh, where it's headed, and what are your thoughts also on the rule changes that they've put into place just this past year?
You know, it's funny. And as far as rule changes, I was not a fan of those when they were announced. But if you think historically, rule changes have always been a part of baseball, and baseball doesn't change their rules nearly as much as, say, the NFL does.
Yeah,
It seems like every year there are a dozen rule changes in the NFL. I think the thing with this pass off season is we saw several at one time, which we don't usually see. I mean, the biggest rule change we had seen before was, I guess, the adoption of the designated hitter in 1973, which I'm sure neither one of us were big fans when it became universal because we both are from National League areas
right.
and enjoyed seeing the pitcher hit. But I got to be honest, the pitch clock has sped up the game, and about 2 hours and a half, 2:40 is about the optimum time to me for a baseball game. When you start getting to 3.5 hours, and you're not getting out of the ballpark until 10:30, um, so I see why they did that. Some of the other changes, I'm not for. I like seeing the stolen bases going up with the larger bases and teams playing a little smaller ball. Again, I'm from St. Louis. We grew up with Lou Brock, Bake McBride, Whitey ball, all that. So that's what we're used to. And I just think that's more exciting than sitting, watching the guy swing from the heels and try to hit a homer. Um, but the one requiring pitchers to face three batters, I think, takes away a lot of the matchup strategies.
Yeah.
Uh, you used to have a lot of situational left-handers, guys that would have long careers in the big leagues, uh, facing one or two hitters 3 or 4 times a week. A guy named Joe Thatcher came up with River City, ended up playing 9 years in the major leagues as a situational lefty. I remember the Cardinals had Tony Fossis, Rick Honeycutt floated around for a while. There have always been those type of guys. Those guys don't have a spot now because I imagine most managers are alternating left, right in the lineup. So you're not gonna stack three left-handers in a row and make yourself Voldemort or one of those left-handed specialists. So I think we've lost something there. Um, I do like the increase in stolen bases, but they've kind of taken away with the whole the new balk rules and the new pitch out rules and all that. And probably the worst of those rules to me is doing away with the shift.
Mm,
Um, it was stupid, but the shift was dumb. Um, One of the best pieces of hitting I ever saw was right here in Southern Illinois when a Rascal player they put the shift on him. They hit the third baseman at shortstop, everybody else between first and second, and he hit a 30-foot bloop down the third base line that ended up going for a double. He was a left-handed hitter. He just went with the pitch, went the other way, and you don't have that now, guys. I think guys should have been able to learn to hit against the shift, but the game now is so much wanting to go with the long ball. And so I guess, if guys won't do it on their own, I guess they decided to mandate it. So on the whole, those rules haven't been as disastrous as I thought they'd be.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. It's I've been I've been monitoring that myself about these rule changes, and I mean I've heard it from many people that it has sped up the game. The pitch clock is it called, and it's like for me it's like a mixed bag. Sometimes there's like some rule changes, such as the shift, banning the shift. I'm like I'm not sure if that was necessary to do that, and other things like other things like pitching changes or things like that, pitch counts or certain things like that. Yeah, I'm like, okay, I understand why they're doing that, but you know, it's a mixed bag for me when it comes
I
to yeah,
I think that the way I see this kind of Stephen is I read somewhere the other day that they said the average Major League Baseball fan is about my age.
right,
I'm 60. And so your average baseball fan is a middle-aged guy. And they're trying to appeal to younger people by making the game go faster and whatnot. And I understand that. And that's fine. Obviously, guys my age aren't going to be around forever. But I think what makes baseball special and different from the other sports is, I went to games with my dad. I know guys that went to games with their grandfather or great grandfather, guys that are older than me said, yeah, I went to my first Cardinal game in 1948 with my grandfather at the old Sportsman's Park and saw Stan Musial play in left field. And so you've got that going down through the years. And baseball's always been kind of a relaxing thing, which was my biggest problem with the pitch clock. Um, Fact is, I'm not a big fan of them playing music in between every pitch like they do sometimes.
uh,
Some stadiums are better at it than others. But if I want nonstop action, I'll go to see hockey or basketball.
yeah,
Baseball is a game where if you miss a couple of pitches, you could still follow the action. You know,
right,
I could sit and talk to you in the stands. We can have a conversation. We can go get in line and get a hot dog, and
right.
you're still going to be able to follow along and not miss anything. Um, Speeding up the game kind of takes away from that. Going to baseball game is just about to me it's as much as hanging out with the people you're with there and having a good time as it is watching the game.
Yeah, and I've noticed that too. Yeah, baseball, it's not the exact same sport as the others like basketball, hockey, or even soccer for that matter. Where those games are they have time limits. But
Right.
baseball was not initially designed to have a time limit. So
No.
so when you try to introduce something like a pitch clock, um, I mean, depending on which league you're in, major leagues or any other league, you can do that, but you have to be careful when you're doing something like that because if you
Mhm.
try to tweak it too much, you might uh, you might push away some fans that way.
There's a couple other things they introduced in the last couple of years, and I'd be interested to know what you think of them. One is that most people don't realize now when you call for an intentional walk, you don't have to throw the ball. You just say we're walking them. The guy walks down there.
Mm,
I saw River City win a game once on a pitcher trying to intentionally walk a batter because most pitchers can't just toss that soft lob up to the mound. They're used to going all out. So the guy threw the ball 4 feet over the catcher's head with men at second and third in the bottom of the 11th inning.
right.
And River City won the game on that wild pitch. You'll never see that situation again.
Yeah.
Um, and
If
I forget what the other one was I was talking about. I was thinking about, but um, I'll think about it in an hour
okay.
after I'm not talking anymore. But yeah, I'm drawing a blank on what I was thinking about now. But the
Yeah,
intentional walk and yeah,
I totally understand that the intentional walk because when a pitcher is doing that, it's four consecutive pitches intentionally away from the strike zone. intentional walk. That's how I've always known it, even when I was watching baseball. I mean,
Right.
right now, I'm almost 34 years old. Next month, I'll be 34. But I've always been like old school minded when it comes to
Hmm.
baseball and sports like that. If certain things are if certain things are working when it comes to rules and they really don't need to be changed, then they probably shouldn't be. But this is the direction that Major League Baseball is going to, and some of the changes they're making, I'm not sure long term speaking, I'm not sure if they're going to last long term. Yeah,
It's a good question. The other thing I was thinking about was the extra inning rules.
yeah,
Um,
extra inning rules. Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of it, but I think it was probably necessary. I know the pitchers like it, not having to pitch, 12 innings or, you know, some of the most fun I've had are games that went till midnight or 12:30 in the morning. We were there 15 innings. Fortunately, those only happen once or twice a season.
yeah,
Um, but I understand it makes perfect sense for them to want to you know, get people out of the ballpark and not have you won't have anybody in the ballpark anyway if you have a 14 inning game on a Tuesday
right.
night. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember my mother and I when we were going to the Paints games in the Frontier League days. Some of those games went so long, like 14, 15,
Yep.
seriously, even 16 or 17 inning games. And I was looking at my mother at times. I was like, I wonder if this game's ever going to end. And eventually it did. But yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, you do have that problem. And when it comes to things like that, duration of a game, I can understand why you would make a rule change for extra innings because you want to just wrap things up at that point. Yeah,
Right.
you don't want a game to go so long that fans are just going to get so tired and they're going to leave anyway. So
Right.
you have to have some sort of compromise when it comes to that.
Right. Um, as far as the other rules, we can talk about that another. We can talk about. I was going to
That's
talk
okay.
about the. I was going to talk about the commissioner, but that's probably a subject for another day.
That could be a video in itself, to be honest
And
with you. Yeah,
yes, you are right.
yeah. So yeah, um, I wanted to ask you just one more question, and this is just a random question about baseball. But
Okay.
have you ever heard of a team called the Tri-Town Tigers?
Tri-Town Tigers? No.
Yeah, yeah, that was a local area baseball team way back in the early 1900s in South Central Ohio.
Really?
Yeah, and from what I gather, um, I heard that they played games against teams like the Chillicothe Babes back in the day.
Hmm.
So, and I asked that because last Friday, my mother and I we went to the local library in Chillicothe, the McKell Library. It's a museum place, and we requested pictures uh, of the historical background of Chillicothe and the area, and especially our part of town. And a couple of pictures that we got copies of were of the Tri-Town Tigers.
No kidding.
Yeah, very early 1900s baseball. A
You,
team, yeah, just yeah,
you've read the book Everything Happens in Chillicothe, right?
yes. And I do have this. Let's see if I can get it here.
Right.
Baseball in Chillicothe by
The
Mike
reason
Shannon. Yeah,
the reason I ask is, Mike Shannon lives in Cincinnati,
yep,
and he publishes a magazine, Baseball Trips Digest.
yep.
And is that the one he publishes? But if you could come up with a short article on the history of the Tri-Town Tigers, he might be interested in publishing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I myself I had never heard of that team before until I went up to McKell Library, and my mother and I just requested pictures because we live in just outside of Chillicothe, and
Mhm.
we were just wanting like pieces of history of our
Right.
area. And the Tri-Town Tigers, some pictures of them just popped up in one of the books that we were.
Hey, there we are.
Hey, sorry about that.
No, that's you know what? And
Yeah,
I meant to mention I saw the timer
yeah,
ticking down there.
yeah, yeah. Zoom cut out. So yeah, we were talking about that team, the Tri-Town Tigers. Yeah, I told that story about going to the McKell Library and finding those pictures of the Tri-Town Tigers, and that got me interested in baseball history once again. And unfortunately, I can't share those pictures here because I my mother and I signed a agreement with McKell
Right,
Library not to share that. So,
right.
but I did go there and I got pictures of that. So yeah,
Cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
always nice to discover something like that you didn't know.
yeah. I had not known that previously. No. So, um, since we're going to be wrapping up here in a few minutes, I do have another question for you.
Sure.
What is basically in summary, what is the outlook for the sport of baseball going forward after these rule changes and what's going on with independent league baseball and all of that?
I think, well, I have a problem, just me, with people think equating Major League Baseball with baseball.
Right.
For instance, Susan and I at home watch more college baseball than we do Major League Baseball.
Mm,
Um, so, but that's just me. There are all kind of other baseball to watch than Major League Baseball. Obviously, that's the one everybody aspires to get to as somebody in the business. That's where you want to get to. Um, I think one thing baseball needs to do is market itself better. Um, if you see the NBA or the NFL, they market their stars.
right.
You don't really see that with the major leagues.
Not as much. No.
I think something Major League Baseball has done. I noticed this year the draft was on TV. In the NBA and the NFL, the draft is a huge deal. It's a huge media deal. I don't think the rule changes are really going to have a negative effect. Um, like I said, short game times may even have a positive effect. Um, it doesn't seem economically that ticket prices, parking concessions have really had much of an effect on Major League Baseball's attendance. Um, so just Major League Baseball, I think they could do more things in terms of marketing, in terms of getting the fans fired up.
Right.
Not just out to the park, but excited to get out to the park. As far as how it affects, you know, rolling down to lower and lower levels, I really hated to see what they did with the minor leagues a couple of years ago,
Oh yeah.
stripping 42 teams of their affiliated, or 42 cities of their affiliated teams.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's something you go back to the wood bat leagues, the collegiate leagues. I think they've probably been the most direct beneficiaries of that.
Hmm.
You know the teams that lost their affiliated teams, a lot of them went to independent ball, and then there were only so many spots in independent ball. Where do those teams go? Collegiate leagues.
Yeah.
So um, it's hard to say what Major League Baseball will eventually want to do with the minors. Um, my gut feeling is if they could do away with minor league baseball, they might.
Mm.
Um, I can see them adopting, say, this major league partner rule.
Partner league.
Um,
Yeah.
It would be like an unofficial um, farm system. Uh, it would take some doing to where they would draft a player and send him to such and such team, say Gateway, say Windy City, say a team in the Atlantic League in exchange for a certain amount of you know considerations, whatever those might be. Um, I think the thing Major League Baseball really it seemed to me with the last negotiation is they want to be able to develop players, but not have any of the cost of developing the players.
Right.
And they're looking for ways to get out from under that cost. And of course, now a court's ruled that they have to pay the players the equivalent of the minimum wage because there were guys in even as high as double A that I believe were making less than minimum wage when you factor in the time they're at batting practice and doing appearances at the local mall or what have you. Um, so let's face it, the entire affiliated minor leagues basically exist to they'll have 24 guys on a minor league roster just so those three or four guys that are eventually going to make the major leagues can get their seasoning and the other guys are just there to support that.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I really think there's going to be like more bumps in the road, so to speak, for Major League Baseball going forward. I think things like what they did to get rid of 42 minor league teams, I think that that did not help them, in my opinion. It just it's kind of like a way to indirect way to push fans away from the game.
It I thought it made them look like a bully.
Yes.
There
And they,
was
yeah,
no there was no negotiation. Hey, we're taking your team away. Not only that, if it, I don't know if you knew, but like the St. Paul Saints that were always the flagship franchise in the Northern League and in the American Association, well, now they're the AAA affiliate of the Minnesota Twins.
yeah,
And I think was it the Lancaster Barnstormers, um, the Round Rock Express in Texas, the same way. Was it Round Rock? No, Sugarland.
yeah, it could have been Sugarland.
I
Yeah,
think it was Sugarland that
yeah,
was in the Atlantic League and now is in affiliated ball. Major League Baseball just kind of went in and took those markets and said, "It sucks to be you."
yeah. It's just that noticed like a lot of the like business decisions that Major League Baseball does that they make. It's it feels like a bully. It just feels like a bully just like asserting their authority over people and organizations and it's supposed to be a friendly game. It's supposed to be about the game of baseball and a lot of this other stuff from the outside is like influencing the game too much right now.
Uh, you know, if you think about it though, Stephen, it's always been that way.
Yeah,
When
to an extent, yeah.
1914, 14, 15, the Federal League came along to become a third major league. They got squashed. Um, in the 50s, the Pacific Coast League made an attempt at becoming a third major league. They were actually reclassified to an open classification. And instead of them becoming a third major league, well, the Dodgers and Giants moved to the two biggest markets in the Pacific Coast League, San
Yeah,
Francisco and Los Angeles. Uh, so, when there was talk of another third major league in the 60s, the Continental League in places that didn't have Major League Baseball thought they deserved it, like Houston, at the time, Minneapolis, St. Paul. The National League didn't have a presence in New York, Atlanta. Eventually, all those cities got Major League Baseball within the next few years,
yeah.
and that cut that one off too. So uh, they've always been very good at looking out for number.
Hmm. Yeah, Major League Baseball in the 60s, they went ahead and expanded to places like San Diego and Montreal, those kinds of places. And find it interesting about Montreal, the Expos, they eventually moved to Washington, D.C. to become the Nationals, and you still get things like that to this day about Major League Baseball. Even right now, the Oakland Athletics, they've been taking center stage about that as
Right.
possibly relocating from Oakland to Las Vegas. And I've been
Now,
keeping an eye on that especially lately. Yeah.
Now, that brings up an interesting point. I don't know how much time we've got left.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball in Las Vegas. If you've watched the MLB network, they have odds on all the games, like on a crawl across the bottom of the
Right.
screen, where you can see the gambling lines on the game. And I never thought I would see that in baseball. It's always been a part, at least unofficially, of football.
Right.
The other basketball to a lesser degree, but football, of course, you can bet on everything from the coin flip to the color of the shoes they're going to wear.
Right.
I remember when I was a kid, Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner at the time, suspended Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle for doing PR for a casino as not being in the best interest of baseball.
Mm.
And now baseball is actually encouraging DraftKings and those type of things
Yeah.
are big sponsors, which so I guess there's no reason for baseball not to go to Los Angeles or Las Vegas now.
Yeah. It's just interesting because Major League Baseball, that is the same sport that banned Pete Rose for betting on baseball. And
Good point.
now they're just turning around and saying, yeah, people can bet on things, so it gives people a different look on Pete Rose, at least. It's just so,
It does.
you know, so
That is a good point. Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, about the Oakland Athletics, it's sad. It's sad what's going on with them, but and I'm not sticking up for their owner because a lot of these Major League Baseball team owners, they're kind of looking out just for money and things like that. But
absolutely.
um, yeah, Oakland as a city is not going through good times right now.
No,
So in a sense, I do understand why the Athletics are wanting to move, whether to Las Vegas or anywhere else for that matter. So it's just interesting. Every time I hear about teams relocating anywhere else, it gets me thinking. I wonder what's going on behind the scenes there.
um, if I can recommend a book to you, and I don't remember the name of the guy that wrote it. It's called Waterloo Diamonds.
Waterloo Diamonds. Okay.
It's about the Midwest League Waterloo Diamonds uh, minor league team who in 1994 relocated to Springfield, Illinois, 2 weeks before the season
Mm,
started. Um, and being around the Frontier League and seeing teams move like you have,
right.
um, it's a very familiar story.
Mm,
You can just change the names and the city, and you know the story.
right.
But it's called Waterloo Diamonds. I'll try to find out the author.
Yeah, send me the link to Waterloo Diamonds and I'll check it out. That
Okay,
sounds
yeah,
very interesting. Yeah.
it's worth a read, definitely.
Mm. Well, I think we should wrap this interview up. It was certainly an interesting journey for me because I've been wanting to get into interviewing on more of a professional scale, and
Sure.
I really appreciate this time we've had, uh, exchanging thoughts and opinions on baseball. And before we go, Tim, would it be okay if people could contact you via email? Uh,
Yeah, that's fine. If they want to email me at go_rascals at yahoo.com. I mean, the Rascals don't exist anymore, but I've
right.
had that email for 20 years. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, go_rascals at yahoo.com, or they could find me on Facebook.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if anybody wanted to ask you questions about baseball, they can feel free to just ask you questions via email.
And if you're interested in Frontier League, you can find the Frontier League History Group on Facebook. There's a lot of former players on there, and they have some really interesting discussions sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, I encourage you guys watch this interview with us to just check out everything that we've been talking about, Frontier League Baseball, Major League Baseball, and keep up to date on what's going on with this sport. And Tim, I can't say it enough. Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you tonight. It was just great getting to talk to you again.
Yeah, yeah, I've missed getting to talk to you, so we definitely should do this again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tim. This has been like the very first STV Castle interview.
Oh, well, good luck. I hope there's a lot more for you and keep it up.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim.
All right,
I appreciate
thanks.
it.
Take care.
Take care.